since we are discussing right now all those calculations, how to create calculated columns and measures, so I'll not ask anything apart from that. Uh, so can someone one of you tell me like what do you understand by calculated columns and measures? Like what is the difference basically between calculated column and measures?
I can try.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So with the regards to calculated column, it's basically adding another column, and it's a row by row count.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so and whenever you're using calculated, well, for measures, it's no, and with the calculated columns, it actually shows on the actual table. It'll be an added column. You'll see it. But whenever you're using a calculated measure, it's just a calculation, and it doesn't show on the table. It'll just be on the report, on the visual part only. And what else do I remember? With the measures, yeah, so it's on visual levels, and it doesn't obviously add a column.
Mm-hmm.
What else do I remember? And
Yeah, so I think you
yeah,
have covered most of the things. The basic difference between calculated column and measure is in calculated column, we will have one column added, and this column will be created based on each row. So basically, values are calculated based on info from each row of the table, right? Which we call as row context, which means like looking at each row and the values in the each row, the new column will be created if we choose to use calculated columns, and that column will reside in the table. Like you can actually see that particular calculated column in the table, wherein measures measures are something wherein values are calculated based on info from any filters in the report. By filters, what I mean, like if I change category name to, let's say, product name, so these numbers will adjust accordingly, right? These numbers will be calculated based on the filters or based on like any filters that we have in the report based on the info. This values are calculated, right? So what happens is in measures recalculate its values based on the any change in the filters within the report. So you can see measures or the values of the measures in the report view. You can't see values of measures in the data view because measures do not live in tables. It lives in visuals. So in any of the visuals you can see measures, but you can't see measures in tables, right? Okay. And the second question is, what do you understand by implicit and explicit measures?
um, if anybody wants to try, that's fine. But I can try if nobody wants to go.
Anyone else wants to try? City, Aklilu?
I'll try.
Yeah, go ahead.
Implicit measure is it's calculate from the. I know the idea, but
Excuse me.
Okay, no problem. You can try Hanan if you want.
Okay, so I think implicit measures are measures that you don't create yourself. The explicit measures are the measures that we create, that we actually write a code for, a query. The implicit is something that is inbuilt already. I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology for it, but we don't create that. That's something that is already provided by Power BI. Whenever you are doing something, it just sort of predicts what you're trying to do, and then it just writes the implicit measure for you. But the explicit is the one that we write, and that's the one that's recommended that we go with.
Okay, so you actually mixed few things. I will clarify. So first of all, implicit measure are created when you drag raw numerical fields into the values pane. So this is a values pane, right? Can you see? Can you guys see my desktop?
No,
Like Power BI?
no. Mm-mm.
You can't. Okay, 1 minute. Okay. Can you guys see now?
No. Now, yes.
What about city, Akhilu? You guys can see? Okay. Okay. So basically, implicit measure is something where you drag, there is something called fields, right, in the right side, and then we have visualizations in the below. Uh, if you go down, you have value section, right?
Mhm.
So if you drag raw numerical fields, let's say in sales, you have type, retail price. Let's say order quantity. Okay. So you already have order quantity, which is present in the table. If you go to the sales table, uh, you will have order quantity. This order quantity was available since start. So this is a numerical field. If you drag this order quantity into the values pane, okay, let me drag it. What happened? This order quantity is automatically summed up, right? Because since this is a numerical field, the aggregation is applied on its own. And the aggregation you can change accordingly, but these aggregation is by default. Some is by default. So what happened? If you drag raw numerical fields like order quantity into the values pane of a visual, right? This is a tabular form, right? So this is a visual. So we have dragged this order quantity here, and this aggregation mode is default selected sum, let's say. So this order quantity is implicit measure. Why? Because what this is doing is this is summing up the entire quantity into one, and this we have not created. This is automatically done. This is the nature of any numerical field, that if you pull it into the values column, value section, it will do the aggregation. Wherein, if you look into this visualization, there is something called quantity sold. Quantity sold is a measure that we have defined, right? So this is explicit measure where we create by actually entering DAX function. So we have explicitly mentioned that you have to sum order quantity, right? So if you, the second column is quantity sold. So if you pull quantity sold as well as raw numerical field order quantity, you see the same value, which means that both will give you the same result, but and that's why the first column order quantity is implicit measure and the second one is explicit, because quantity sold we have defined on our own, like we have used DAX sum function and then we have defined, wherein order quantity is a raw numerical field which you pulled in the values column, value section, and it automatically summed up the numbers, right? Summed up the values. But why we should not use implicit measure and it's recommended to use explicit measure? Because implicit measure are only accessible within the specific visualization in which it was created. You cannot reference this order quantity anywhere else, wherein explicit measure that we created can be used in anywhere in the report. So you can use this order quantity sold in this particular view also, but you can't use order quantity. You have to separately actually pull order quantity over here, or you can't reference this in any DAX function. If you write some DAX function, you can directly pull quantity sold, and that will give you the values which is summed up, but you can't use order quantity in that DAX function. You have to write the sum of order quantity, something like that, right? So this value can't be referenced within other DAX calculations to create any complex formulas. So it's better to write measures explicitly so that it can be used in uh, other DAX calculations, and it can be used in another report also, right? Anywhere in the report, you can use it. So that is the difference between explicit and implicit measure. Now the third thing comes is a quick measure. So first is implicit measure, second is explicit measure, third is quick measure. So quick measure is something which is inbuilt, wherein you don't need to write DAX function. The DAX function is already calculated. Once you click on the quick measure, they will ask you what calculation do you want to do. You just have to select that calculation, let's say running total, and you have to give the field, which field you want to do the running total, what is the value you want to do the running total, and you just have to hit OK, and it will calculate the running total. You don't need to write complex DAX formula to calculate running total. I'm talking about running total because I had selected that running total. You have various other calculations available, so you can use quick measure, but it is not recommended because it will make you lazy. You will just go here and then you will do it. You will not be comfortable in writing DAX queries and understand how it's working. But this is one of the feature that is inbuilt and you can use it, which is quick measure. Okay, so is it clear now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So now I think these were the three major concepts that were there. And now what we will discuss today is, let me actually see till where we completed. We had covered related, I think, right? Mm, did we cover calculate function or did we not? I think calculate we did not cover. So today I'll talk about the calculate function. Okay. So let me actually go to the Power BI. So basically, if you look into calculate, there are three, not three, basically two or more. So first is expression, and the second is filter that you want to apply. So I'll go to Power BI and quickly show you. So calculate function is basically it will evaluate a given expression under set of defined filters. I will use calculate in one of the tables and then you can look into it. So let's say sales table. Okay. Let's create one measure. So right click, new measure. Since I want to create under AW sales table, that's why I came to AW sales and right clicked and went to the new measure. I'll name this as bulk orders. And I'll use calculate function. Okay, so as soon as you use calculate function, you see there is something called expression, then filtered one, then dot dot dot, which means you can have like multiple filters over here, filter 1, filter 2, filter 3, like that. So the first thing I want to use is I have to give is expression, right? So I'll give total orders. And here under expression, see, total orders is something that we had created separately. You see, this is a measure that we had created. So we are why this is called as expression, because we are using a explicit measure that we had created. So we are using total orders, which is created earlier, and then I'm telling you calculate total orders based on some function, some filter that I will mention here, right? Somebody rejoined. Okay. So in filter one, what we will put? We will put order quantity greater than 1. So what we have done here is we are telling Power BI to calculate total orders when you have wherever you have order quantity greater than 1, you calculate the total orders, right? I will click and I will hit enter, and I'll show you like what is total orders, right? So total orders, we have separately or explicitly created a measure, which what does it do? It actually calculate distinct count of order number, right? So if we see under bulk order, we are saying calculate distinct count of order number wherever order quantity is greater than 1. So that number will be captured under bulk order. So here, let me pull actually. I will remove all these so that it's little bit clearer. Mm, I will keep quantity sold, total orders, and I will remove for now quantity returns and all these things. Okay. I will pull bulk order. Okay. Yeah. So what we are saying is under accessories, we have 13,370, clothing 3,414, total this one. And bikes, nothing. What does bulk orders means is wherever the order that has been placed is greater than 1, the order quantity was greater than 1, I am telling them to calculate how many items are such wherein you have the order quantity greater than 1. So we have accessories 13,370 distinct accessories which were ordered multiple times, and 3,414 clothing category which were ordered multiple times, right? Under bikes, we don't have any value because this makes sense also, like nobody will purchase bike multiple times, right? Like multiple bikes nobody will purchase since this is high priced product, right? So that's why we are not getting anything here, uh, because nothing was there in the data set. But this makes sense also, like accessories, you can buy multiple accessories in one go, you can buy multiple clothes, but nobody will purchase multiple bikes, right? So that's why this is bulk orders. This is what we have calculated, right? So is there any questions? The way we have used the calculate function. Any question?
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, on a bike, if you buy like a three bikes, so it's not bulk order or
Yeah, so if, let's say, if you have purchased multiple bikes, then it will appear over here. But in this, then it will be coming under bulk order, because the bulk order measure how we have created, we have written that if under the sales table order quantity is greater than 1, then calculate total orders. So in, let's say, in your data set, if you have order multiple order quantities for a bike, then you will get the number over here. If somebody, let's say, some customer is purchasing multiple quantity of bikes, then it will appear over here. But in this case, we, in the data set, we don't have that. When if you filter this data by the category name bike and see if the total quantity greater than 1, how many of bikes are available, then you will not find anything over here. But if that is the case, that is, and if that data is present in your backend data set, then it will appear over here. Certainly, like the calculation is same as accessories and clothing. Wherever the calculation is happening, if you have the order quantity greater than 1, and if you have like multiple sales happening in each of these category, then that will capture over here. Did I answer your question? So basically your,
yeah.
yeah, the answer of your question is yes. If it's more than 1, then it will appear over here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any question?
I'm good.
Okay. City, you are good?
Yes, I'm good. Thank
Okay. Now, let me go to the returns table. We will create one more measure using calculate function. Okay. So let's create something called new measure. Create bike returns. Okay. I will use calculate. I will use total returns. So total returns is a measure that we had created earlier. You will have total returns, right? So you have to use some expression over here. So we had already created total returns using the sum function or something. We will check that. So we have used that total returns over here. And then the second argument is filter. So you want to calculate total returns when, what condition? So I'll put the condition when the category name is bikes. So what I'm telling Power BI to do is, please calculate total revenue, not total revenue, total returns I wanted. Returns, this one. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, calculate total returns wherever your product category lookup is, or wherever your category name is bike, right? I'm saying that. I'll hit enter. Yeah. And I'll pull this in this table. So you see here, what has happened is, uh, you see 427 everywhere, right? But what we had told was, we told that you calculate total returns wherever category name is bike, right? So ideally it should have given me number only wherever bike is there, 427. Wherever it's other category like accessories, clothing, components, it should not have given any number over here, right? But I see the total returns value is repeated in each of these categories. So what is happening over here? So what happens? This is very important. This calculate function modifies or overrules any filter context. So what happens is, even though we have one filter applied over here, like we have category name and we are telling that calculate based on accessories, as soon as we pull any measure wherein we have used calculate function, so this function will override each of these category names. So it will not look into these category names. If we have used category name in the calculation itself, it will look for bikes. It will filter the data based on the bike and it will give you values everywhere. So this particular thing is overruled, which means, like in this example, clothing row has a filter context of category name clothing, right? Which means like the data will get filtered based on the category name clothing, and then it will calculate total returns or total orders or whatever quantity sold, right? And in this case, wherever we have bike returns, what it does is it will calculate total returns based on the category name bikes, right? So, but in one row, both cannot be true, right? Here we are saying that calculate total returns based on clothing. And here under bike returns, we are saying calculate total returns based on bike returns, right? Like based on bikes. So both cannot be true at the same time. So clothing filter is overwritten by the bike filters. Bike filter takes priority because bike filter is being used under calculate function. So in the case wherein you have like filters category or anything over here and you have used the same filter in the calculate function, so then the filter that is used in calculate function will override all the other filters. And that's why like clothing, you don't see any other value over here or anything. You see like values 427 everywhere, right? But if I use instead of category name, let's say I use subcategory or something like that. Let's say I remove category name and I use subcategory. Okay. Or maybe instead of subcategory, let's say uh, uh, let's say product name. Okay. If I use product name, then what happens? You see blank everywhere and then you see for each of these product different numbers. Why? Because what happens is product name is a filter, and under bike returns we have not used product name anywhere, right? We have used category name, we have not used product name. So for product name, wherever you have product related to bikes, you will see that total returns value coming over here, right? So here in this case nothing will be overwritten because you are not using product name in your formula, right? So yeah, so that is what I was trying to tell. I can show you one thing so that it's actually easier to understand. So let's say this is how the calculate function works, right? So in step one, if you see what is there, filter context is detected and applied, right? Let me actually zoom in. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
If you zoom in better.
Okay. So see what we are trying to do here. What we are telling is step one is filter context is detected and applied. What does it mean? The in the first thing when we created bike returns, right? So the category name is accessories here. First thing it will see is category name accessories. And in the product table, what it does is it will filter all the data based on accessories because we this is a filter, this is kind of filter that is there. So we have category name accessories, bike, clothing, components, everything. So the first thing it will do is it will identify which filter context is there, and it will be applied on the backend data. So it looked upon category name accessories and it applied that accessories filter on the backend data, right? The second thing is then then it comes calculate. So we used calculate functions, right? Wherein we used calculate total returns if category name is bike. So what happened? Filters get modified by calculate category name bikes. So instead of this accessories, since we have used this calculate function in bike returns, it modified the backend table and the filter is changed from accessories to bikes. So the backend data changed from accessories to bikes. Like the filter in the backend data got changed, and now the backend data is filtered based on the category name bike. And then the step two is then that filter is flowed to all the related tables. So product table is related to sales table and returns table, right? So this filter trans uh, is going since filter flows downstream, right? That we have discussed. So it is actually filtering sales data and returns data. So both sales data and returns data are filtered basis on this category name equal to bike. So now the returns table is having only those data wherein the category name is bike, right? Now the third step is measure formula evaluates against the filtered table, right? So now the total returns, we had put the total returns as a first function wherein what does total returns mean? Here under our formula, under bike returns, what we wrote total returns wherein the category name is bike. So now the return table has been filtered for bikes, and what it has to calculate, it has to calculate total returns. So under total returns, what do we have? We have count a return quantity. That means count all the columns wherein we have return, count all the rows wherein we have returns, right? So under total returns, it will count returns data. Count rows and count a works the same way. We have discussed it in earlier classes. So count rows or count a returns data. So whatever number of rows will be available from here, it will count. So in this case, it's 342, right? If I change this to this one, bike returns, it is 427, right? For us it's 427. So basically the logic is this one, right? uh, how basically filter context is getting applied. Filter context first accessories is applied, and then bikes overrode that, and then bikes uh, filter is flowed to sales table and returns table, and then the total returns are being calculated, and that value is actually being applied to each of the rows that we are seeing over here, right? So that is why we have values in each of the rows. So any question, anyone? Any question? I know this is a little bit difficult to understand, but uh, just wanted to cover this. Maybe you will not face this kind of thing while creating a dashboard, but you should like you should at least be aware like this might happen. Like if you have category name here also, and then you or any field here also, and you use that field in your calculate function, and if you pull that measure over here, it will be repetitive, because what will happen, whatever filter you have used into your calculate function, that will override the filter over here, right? You might not face this kind of thing in your dashboard when you create, right? So, but just wanted to cover this. Any question?
To be honest, it was a little confusing to me how, yeah, the whole you wanted it to calculate based off the word bike, but it's going after the column name the bike returns as opposed to the category name. That concept was a
No, no,
little
no, 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 I
weird.
didn't get your question. Can you tell me your question
Yeah,
again?
I didn't understand, or it's just hard for me to grasp how you told it to do one thing. You wrote a formula saying um anywhere, like based off of the category name, right? There's a column that says category name, but it's
Mhm.
overriding that and it's just looking for bikes and giving us the output is just, it's a little strange to me. I'd have to watch the video again and try to, I don't know, understand it, but it's weird because I've seen something like this before when I was trying to create something. I'm not
Mhm.
sure if it's the exact same thing, but I remember seeing the like one column just having the exact same, um, you know, like numbers all, for all the rows, and I was a little bit baffled, like what it didn't make any sense to me. But now it's
Yeah, so
even
this
harder
doesn't,
than I
yeah,
actually
so
thought.
this doesn't make any, uh, I mean, like this makes sense, but uh, why this is repeating in each of those rows
Yeah.
is something I was trying to tell you. But this makes sense in the case if you have some kind of visualization like this, and you have like measure wherein you used product name or category name as bike, and you calculate like the total returns for that particular thing, and you pull it here, that makes sense. Why? And these numbers are correct. Like if the, I'm not sure which example you are telling wherein the values were repeating, maybe like we have also showed earlier in our class where values were repeating, that was wrong. But in this case it is correct. These numbers are correct, since uh, the calculate function, filter under calculate function, overrides all other filters. That's the point. So in all the cases wherein the values are repeating doesn't mean that it is wrong, right? In this case it is right because this filter overrides the category filter over here, and that's why these values are repeating, which is correct.
And that's the part I don't get. Like, why does it overwrite the other filter?
That is
Is
how
it
the, so
basically
see
just
why I'm okay, tell me one thing. Let's say under bike returns, the way we have calculated this measure, we have told this particular measure to calculate total returns wherein the category name is bikes, right? Now,
so then the category name bikes is so that 427 should just be under bikes, not under accessories, clothing, or components.
correct, correct. That is how you think it should be. But what happens is, that's what I showed you, right?
I guess I didn't
What happens?
understand.
Okay. So what happens? It will look into how measure works. Measure works based on like it will look for the first filter, and then it will have like some value. Then it will look for the second filter, it will have some value. So what happens is under it will look into the first row. So it looked into the accessories, and accessories was applied. Accessories was applied over here, right? But then what happens, it once the accessories was applied, it will look into the measure that we have created. And the when it looked into the measure, because by how this total returns is working, this or total orders is working. So total orders is working based on what happens. The first in the product table category name is identified, and then it will look into total orders column, total orders measure. So under total orders, it will see what it has to do. So it has to count distinct count of order number. So what it will do, it will it looked into the total orders measure, and then it will the filter will flow to the sales table and returns table. It will filter the sales table and returns table based on whatever filter we have here. So which is accessories in that case, in the case of total orders. And then once that is filtered, accessories is filtered, the total orders will be calculated. So the calculation, the measure always works in three steps. First step is the filter is applied. Second step is filter will flow to the all the related tables. And the third step is the formula will be evaluated, right? These are the three steps in any measure calculation, right? Any value that you see here, how it is getting calculated. First thing is the filter will be applied. The second thing is that filter will flow to the all the related tables. And the third thing is this measure will be calculated. Is this clear?
Yes and no, but that's okay. We can move on.
Okay,
I have
don't
video.
don't don't actually look for bike returns. I'm just talking about like how the measure is calculated. So measure is calculated in three steps. First thing is it will look for the filters that is there. That filter will be applied. That filter will flow to the other related tables, and then in that related tables it will be the measure will be calculated. That is how any measure calculation works. Like the value you see is generated. So the same thing
Mm.
happened in bike returns also. What happened? It looked into accessories, and then that it looked into this bike returns measure. So in bike returns measure, what happened? We have used something called category name bikes, right? So now there is a conflict. Which category should they pass into this related tables? Whether they have to pass accessories into related tables, or whether they have to pass this bikes which we have put in the measure to the related tables, because there are two filters that is there, right? One is accessories and one is bike. So how they will pass both the filters to this table? This data can be filtered either based on the category name bikes or based on the category name accessories, right? So the bikes filter is overwritten because this is being used in calculate function. Calculate,
Mm.
and that's why bike flowed down, and the total count that happened is based on bikes. So even if their categories is anything, what happens between this category and the category that we used in the formula, this category is over it, like this category overrides all the other categories. This is like you can say precedes or takes superiority on other categories or other filters categories that we have here. And that's how like this is getting calculated, because the way measures are calculated is always in the three steps. It can't ignore this one. It can't ignore anything like this here, since we have category in the calculate function also. So yeah, this might be little difficult for you guys to actually grasp, but you can go to the video and then ask me any questions if you have, right? But yeah, this is one of the concept that I wanted to cover. Okay.
I have a question, please.
Yeah, go on.
So can you go back to the formula that you wrote?
Okay, 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute. I will.
Okay.
My laptop is almost dead. Yeah. Okay. I think it is. Yep. So you want me to go to the formula, right?
Please.
Okay. This
So,
one.
yeah, just so leaving it there. If we wanted to modify this to the
Yeah.
point where it calculates based off of the category name and then it gives us the output just under bikes, the bike returns would be like the 427 and everything else. I think earlier you changed the category name. How else can we modify the measure that you wrote so that the output will be so that we still have the category name and then the bike return data would be again the 427 under the bikes and then everything else I guess will be maybe nothing on it because it's not bikes. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to ask. I'm trying to modify the measure that you wrote, the formula that you
Mhm,
wrote.
mhm.
Yeah, but maybe yeah, if you understand what I'm trying to ask, maybe you
So
can
you
assist,
want me to have like 427 here, but not anywhere else.
right? Because the category name we're working with, like say, yeah, we come across something like this where we still have to have one of the columns as the category name. And because I mean,
Yeah,
when you're
so what
given,
you can do is 1 minute. What you can do is if you pull total returns over here, let's say I pull total returns, right? So you see, you already have total returns as 427 for bikes, for accessories it's 1115, for clothing it's 267, right? So these are the actual numbers that is there, and you can have it from here. I was just trying to tell like if you like uh create something like bike returns or anything wherein you use a filter which is already present here, then what in that scenario what numbers, how the numbers will look like, right? But if but like this is one of the examples that I gave you, but if you want to look into bike returns and see what is the number and this number should not repeat in other cases, then
Mhm.
like you can look into total returns right directly, so that will give you exact number. Like if you want to see like how many returns happened in accessories, clothing, individual categories, you can directly pull total returns measure that we have created and you can see like whatever number is there, right?
Okay,
Hmm.
thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. So we'll create one more function, one more measure using calculate function, and then I think we will be covered. So let me go to the calendar lookup. Just give me 1 minute. Somebody is calling me. Yeah, I'm back. So let's create one more measure. Let's say we create a measure wherein we have weekend orders. So I will use calculate function. Under calculate function, let's say I pull total orders. This is a measure that we have already calculated, and then I want to say if the if weekend is a uh, weekend is something that we had created a column. Weekend is a calculated column that we had created. So we are saying that if that column has values as a weekend, then calculate total orders. Okay. So what I will do, I will create a visualization. So how is it looking? If I pull total orders, let's say weekend orders, right? So here and then category name. Actually, I should have created this weekend orders in sales table itself. Let me actually create weekend orders. Delete this. Because a calendar table should have like only uh, columns or values related to date field. Weekend orders is something that we are looking as the number of orders, which should be under sales table. Like that is more logical. I'll create weekend orders under sales table quickly. The same thing that we did. Calculate total orders. And I'm saying that if that weekend column is having values as weekend, then calculate the total orders, right? And I will pull weekend orders over here, and then I'll pull category. Okay. So here what we are seeing is uh, under category accessories, total orders that happened for accessories column is 16983, and on weekends, right, which is Saturday, Sunday, total order that has been ordered is 4713. Similarly for bikes and clothing. So this is how you can actually calculate or use calculate function in the measures, right? So is this clear? This was pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, yeah, this is what I wanted to cover today. Uh, there are a few, three, four functions that are left that I need to touch upon. One is using calculate, like I will use calculate function itself, but under calculate function, I will tell you how to use some other functions, like some other filters. And there's something called all. All is also one of the uh, filters that is there. So I'll tell how to use that because these are the filters that will be widely used when you create a dashboard, right? So that is one thing. So under calculate, there is one thing that is remaining that I'll cover in tomorrow's class. Then there's something called iterator function, like the way we used sum, right? There's something called sum x. Then there is count x, row x. So there is some function which is called, which is same, but the function is different, right? So I will show you. Let's say we have till now we have used sum, right? You see there is something called sum x. Similarly, if we use count, then there is another function which is called count x. So I'll cover upon what is the difference between these two and when to use x, count x or sum x, and when not to use that, right? So that is one thing that is remaining. And the third thing is there are few time intelligence functions, time intelligent formula like dates, year till date, date add. These are the functions. I will show you. Dates, see dates YTD, dates QTD, dates MTD, all these things, right? There's something called dates, uh, dates in period, dates between, yeah, and date add also, date add, date diff, right? These are few of the time intelligence function. What it does, I will talk about that. So these are the three things that are remaining. I hope I will be able to cover these three in tomorrow's lecture. So once that is done, we will be done with the calculated columns and measures, and then we will start the visualization. So actual charts and all those things, like how to use that and everything. So maybe like till tomorrow it will be little uh theoretical, or like you can understand like all these functions, you need to understand how it works. But then from the next to next lecture, I think it will be very interesting, like what all charts are these, what are the differences, when to use which chart, and how to create visualization. So maybe like I think in 5 6 lecture we will be able to wrap this up. Okay, so any question, anyone?
I'm good. Thank you.
No problem. So I think tomorrow will be again one lecture for these functions and all these things. But these are important because this is something which you need to create your data. Like once you have all these things, then the visualization is a fun part and then easier part, because if you have all these calculations in place, right, that we are discussing right now, so then you just need to drag and drop and see which chart to use, where to use, add colors, do formatting and all those things. So that is really fun. Like you can create a very good dashboard based on that. So we'll start that from day after tomorrow, and tomorrow we will discuss the remaining 2 3 things that is pending. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys. So I think yeah, that is it for today. Any questions? City, Aklilu, anything?
No question. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. I'll talk to you then tomorrow. Yep.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
And a night.
Yeah. Okay. Bye bye.